You're going to face disappointments, and you're likely not going to knock it out of the park right away, but you're building something, and you're building something slow. So I'd say, like, get out there and make a jam game, pull in your friends who you know you can trust and lean on, and try and make something. And even if you fail, if you can find the fun in being bad at something, then you can get good at it.
Supertry Studios is a fully independent studio founded by game designer Kevin Cole and just a few of his close friends in 2013. After committing to complete his first game in 2015, he has since made a whopping 28 games, countless of them being for game jams and a few educational sourced, and even a successful port to Steam, not even mentioning the comprehensive tabletop RPG and self-published companion book. We sat down and discussed what going full-time indie developer looks like, the sacrifices and successes along the way, and finding contentment in all the spaces in between. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing okay. I'm coming off of a 48-hour jam.
Oh, man.
I did GMTK jam this year, and I did an all-nighter for it to get my game in on time. And I'm 34. I can't do all-nighters anymore. Not without consequences. So right now I'm kind of living in those consequences.
You've made like a bunch of jam games now.
Yeah, I started making games in 2013, and about the first 4 or 5 years of Supertry was focused on larger projects, and I wanted to get better at finishing things. Yeah, I just started doing more jam games and building up my skills that way, and it's been really, really helpful for figuring out what exactly I am capable of. My first game, I really wanted to do like this big epic fantasy story, and it was such a disaster because it was my first game that I felt like maybe I can't write stories so good after that. And it took like Pretend Friends and like a couple of other like game projects to get my confidence back after that. And I'm slowly trying to kind of relearn how to lead with something that I want to say rather than something I want to make people feel.
I was curious, like your experience with kickstarting that game. Did you feel the pressure because of having kickstarted it?
So basically what had happened was I was working a normal job. I was a back-end web developer, and I also did some front of desk stuff. I didn't really feel happy at that job. Things kind of boiled up with workload, and I went into a meeting, and when I walked out of that meeting, one of my coworkers had to tell me that I had just quit my job because I didn't realize that was essentially what I said in that meeting. I moved back home. I was like, you know what? Why don't I at least try to make video games? And so I knew Kickstarter existed, and my thought process going into that was, I think I can do this. I have nothing to prove I can do this, but I also really need money in order to live. After I got like that payout from Kickstarter, I was like, oh man, this is real. I got to figure all this out. And I said I'd do it in a year. So it was a tremendous amount of pressure. I didn't know how long things would take or what really I had to do. I just kept working at it, and I kept chipping away at it. And 1 year turned into 2. Around like the 1.5 year mark, I realized that the game was nearly unplayable. So I had to like scrap a whole bunch of stuff. But at the end of it, I had made a video game, and I knew how to do things. And I was like, oh, I have this now. I don't have the game. I don't have my dream game. I don't have like the ultimate video game that I thought I was making, but I do have a skill now. I did finish it. I took about a month off from figuring out my life, and I got really bored. And in my boredom, I started making another video game, and that became Hack. Kickstarter provided the pressure I think I needed to finish a thing. I hesitate to recommend Kickstarter to somebody just starting out because there is a skepticism around Kickstarter. I think it is harder to show up with, no proof of your aptitude at making a thing and get funded unless your goal is really, really low and you have some really good friends, which is a good idea no matter what you're doing.
So by the time that you had gotten to Space Kings, in the sense of like utilizing Kickstarter as a tool, did you feel like it was a means to an end in that respect.
Space Kings, it was like the complete opposite story, because like Pretend Friends had essentially been like the G.I. Joe cartoon for Space Kings for years. And folks were like hungry for it. Like we got people being like, when is the book coming out? Kickstarter was the right move in that case because we had the audience, we had the demand, we super needed money in order to print books, which was a thing we definitely wanted to do. I like the fact that I have a Space Kings book that I can like show people, and it is available now at spacekings.space and book.spacekings.space if anyone's interested. But it was a big moment for me to get my name and the name of my friends in that book. But yeah, my first Kickstarter and my latest Kickstarter are very different stories.
As you were saying, as you're going through that process, you were also, getting into podcasting. You were bringing something that you had made for fun and you had been playing for years, and you were able to make that into reality. In wanting to be a game developer today, do you think it's even possible to self-start without, wearing a lot of different hats, without having your hands in all these different places?
If I was a shepherd of men, like if I could just, if I was an excellent coordinator and an excellent project manager, I wouldn't have to learn all this stuff. I think, if you're going to make video games today, you kind of have to wear as many hats as possible, because it's a lot of lines of communication that need to talk to each other just to change like one thing in a game, because it's also interconnected. But if you are the artist and you are the programmer and you are the director, you can just be like, oh, I should add a frame here. Boop. It's that old like saying, he who travels farthest travels in a group, he who travels fastest travels alone. Like, you can just move so much quicker as an indie because the amount of people you have to talk to is lower. Working with people is a part of game dev. Like, there's no game dev totally alone. Like, Daisuke Amaya, when he made Cave Story, like, he probably had a buddy that he was drinking beers with, every now and then, or like a family member or somebody supporting him. The idea of a one person can make a game is a beautiful idea, but it simply isn't true. You make games for other people to play. You can't just make a game alone. Or maybe you can. I don't know. I don't think it would be very fun. Like, games are expressive and they're art and they're beautiful, and it's a thing you share with somebody else, and it's, it doesn't make sense to limit yourself to be like, well, the music sucks in my game and it ruins the experience, but I made it myself and damn it, it's going out. When you could have just like talked to a person, when you could have just like talked to a musician friend. One person can make a game, but they can't do it alone. It's like the weirdest kind of paradox.
I really wanted to ask you about your sustainability and how you're doing this full-time, independent, this pays your bills.
Yep.
You are living the dream of millions, and I'm so curious how you do it in a realistic way.
We're going to get a little real, because...
That's exactly what I want.
Basically, my podcasting work pays my rent. I'm in Massachusetts, so that takes care of my healthcare. I recently signed up for SNAP benefits, and that is helping me out with my grocery bill. Hack is still one of my most beloved and popular games that I've worked on, and it's one of the few games that I've been bold enough to ask for people to buy it. A corner of every SuperTry dollar I make goes to Joe for doing the music. I also pay Hadley for the projects Hadley works on, and the Space Kings book is split equally between the four of us. Patreon comes in with about $400 a month. I can't make anything without my patrons supporting me. My income is very diverse, but it took me 10 years to get to this point. What I've noticed, I think, is things that take a long time to build to also take a longer time to destroy. I think being aware of the opportunities and the technology around you right now, being aware of where is the angle, what can you do that's different that not everyone else is doing, I think that's the best advice I can give. Find the angle first, figure out how you're gonna support yourself and doing this. Maybe it's moving back in with your parents, maybe it's picking up temp work, maybe it's doing something, but be aware of the government benefits that are available to you. Don't be too proud. It's not glamorous. I am technically living the dream of millions. I do spend the vast majority of my time making art. Often it's video games, and often it's podcasts. And sometimes it's mulch. I'm always making stuff, and I'm always like thinking creatively. I can eat food, and I can live in an apartment, and I'm very, very happy with what I'm doing.
Is there any advice you think is the best advice you have that you'd want people to know before we kind of wrap things up here?
I would say, if you are trying to get started making games right now, I would highly recommend game jams. You probably won't finish it, but you will have a deadline. You will have something by the end of the jam, if not a finished game. And that is a good foothold to start and keep moving. Make something and make it with purpose. Make something bad, make something unfinished, make something that's just a pile of weird stuff. And then don't throw it away. Mm-hmm. Look at it and be like, what does this give me a foothold to do next? You won't actually waste any time that way. Mm-hmm. As long as you can bear to look at your horrible, like, disfigured, terrible child that you've made and be like, I love you, dude. You're all right in my book. Like, I get what you're about. Then you can keep going. Making, like, dumb, like, game maker games in college, I was like, I'm awful at this, but it's incredible. I'm clicking a clown and it's moving to a different part of the screen.
Yes.
What else can I do? If you can have fun being bad at the thing, that's a great indication that you should keep going. So that's my advice. Make something bad so you can make something good, and try and love your horrible children.
You can check all of Kevin's stuff out down below. Yeah. Kevin, thank you so much for being here and letting us pick your brain for the evening, and you've been just a treat to talk to.
Matthew, Greg, thank you so much for having me. This has been super fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kevin. We will see you out there in the space.
Oh, we will see you.
We will see you in space.
See you, Space King boy.
All right. Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye, buddy.
Bye.